Good afternoon. I'm Randy Jingleski.
And I'm Riley Johnson.
And this is Particle Sorting and Settling Rate for Kids.
Today we're going to learn about how different particles sort and settle in their natural habitat and what can affect it.
That's right, Riley. You may be wondering, what exactly is a rock's natural habitat? Well, quite bluntly, rocks come from bigger rocks.
The biggest rock being the Earth. But what makes smaller rocks out of bigger rocks?
Weathering and erosion. And since these processes depend upon gravity, they always happen in a downward direction.
And when a rock falls, sometimes they're going to end up in water, like a stream.
This is a graph from page 6 of your Earth Science Reference Table, which shows the relationship between transported particle size and water velocity of a stream.
That's right. The reference table is a powerful tool, filled with test answers.
And you don't even have to hide it from anybody.
This graph not only shows how much velocity is necessary to transport a particle, but also how particles are classified in relation to their diameter.
In today's experiment, we'll be using table salt, pennies, beads, and BBs made of copper.
If I was really bored, I could measure the diameter of table salt and see what its Earth science particle equivalent would be. It would probably be classified as SIL or something.
But don't worry, we figured out our actual experiment particle diameters. That's coming up later in the video.
There are two types of sorting, horizontal and vertical.
Horizontal sorting occurs as a stream slows down, such as when it widens or deposits into a larger body of water. As water slows gradually, smaller and smaller particles drop out, causing horizontal sorting.
Yes. Well, in vertical sorting, it's different from horizontal sorting, in the sense that particles are deposited downwards. Therefore, the larger ones deposit first.
In horizontal sorting, smaller particles settle lower in the strata, while larger particles settle above.
In vertical sorting, it's practically the opposite. The larger sediments deposit first, followed by the smaller ones in descending order.
As I've mentioned, you're likely to see horizontal sorting in nature as a stream slows down and deposits sediments. Where might we see vertical sorting, Riley?
Well, you're most likely to see vertical sorting in action during the formation of bedrock, or bed form.
Ah, that is incomprehensibly interesting.
Yes, it is. The only more interesting thing might be your experiment on particle sorting rate. Quick, to the Seismobile!
Hold it, kid!
Where did you get this thing?
I know a guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wait, where'd you get all this stuff?
How do I have to tell you? I know a guy.
Alright, we're going to be dropping different materials into the fish tank at the same time to see which settle faster.
Right. Pay very close attention.
First we need to make sure that the water is nice and wet. Then we're preparing to drop the beads. It took 4.85 seconds for all the beads to settle. Next we're going to drop the pennies. We're going to assume the water is just as wet as before, so we don't need to retest that. It took 1.85 seconds for the pennies to settle. That's significantly faster than the beads. Now we'll be testing the copper BBs. It took 1.35 seconds for the copper BBs to settle. Lastly, we're going to be dropping the table salt.
Where'd it go? I don't see it.
The table salt took approximately 6.4 seconds to settle.
Which makes sense. The BBs and the pennies have practically the same density.
Yeah.
However, the pennies are flatter, and flat objects usually settle much slower.
Plus, the BBs were round and smaller.
Exactly.
The salt was very, very small, and probably was dissolving in the water as it was sinking to the bottom. So, that's probably what
Happened.
Yeah, and they weren't very small particles, slower. They had probably the least amount of density, I'll estimate. And the beads were about the same size as the BBs, but they weren't totally round, and they also definitely didn't have as much density as the copper particles.
Much less dense.
Yes. So I think that's what happened.
With my salt.
You're gonna have to wait a couple more weeks, maybe, depending on the weather.
Remember, kids, always use your reference tables.
Yes, they're very useful. Can you unchain me now?
Where's my salt?
I ain't dressing up like no nun.